आज हमारे पास डेमोग्राफी है, आज हमारे पास डेमोक्रेसी है, आज हमारे पास डाइवर्सिटी है। भारत का सामर्थ्य और भारत की संभावनाएं विश्वास की नई बुलंदियों को पार करने वाली है और ये विश्वास की नई बुलंदियां नए सामर्थ्यों को लेकर के चलनी चाहिए रही है। भारत एक मदर ऑफ डेमोक्रेसी, भारत मॉडल ऑफ डाइवर्सिटी भी है। आज भारत ग्लोबल साउथ की आवाज बन रहा है।
Good evening, welcome to Left, Right and Centre. I'm Vishnu Deshmukh and a very happy Independence Day to all our viewers. In his 10th Independence Day speech from the ramparts of the Red Fort, the Prime Minister today laid down his vision for the country's development and his government's plan to make India a developed nation by 2047. The speech was expansive, from the need to maintain peace in Manipur to an open appeal to voters by stating that he would return to the Red Fort next year if people's blessings were with him. On this program, an analysis of the key points of what the Prime Minister had to say and the implications for 2024. Let's listen in to a couple of key points mentioned by the Prime Minister. But before we actually get to that, let's bring you a few details of what exactly the Prime Minister spoke out. A summary of the key points. The Prime Minister said that this is the first year of Amrit Kal. Decisions taken now will have an impact for the next 100 years. The most important phase of the fulfillment of goals set for the year 2047 will be in the next 5 years. It is the trijunction of demography, democracy and diversity that is capable of giving wings to our dreams. That is what will eradicate poverty. With regard to the situation in Manipur, the Prime Minister said that the dignity of mothers and daughters had indeed been violated. But in the last few days, we've been hearing of a continuous effort at peace and that the entire nation stands with the people of Manipur. All our decisions are taken with a single goal: India first. Every paisa of the public's money should be spent for the betterment of the lives of people. It should be the country's mission to get rid of corruption, nepotism and appeasement. Be it backward, be it Pasmanda communities, that's an interesting reference we'll talk about with our panelists in a while. Be it our tribal brothers and sisters, we all have to get rid of these three evils. India will become the third largest economy. Cheap loans will be handed out for constructing homes. Whether it's the progress of Chandrayaan or the moon missions, many women scientists are at the forefront. Higher education will be imparted in regional languages. Getting the operative part of the Supreme Court's judgments in regional languages is a good thing, is what Prime Minister Modi said. Today, India is moving towards modernity and is seen as a power comparable to several in the world. We are a friend to the world and we think about not just us but the entire world. We helped the world during COVID and are leading contributors in combating climate change. We'll bring schemes for cobblers, blacksmiths, barbers, masons and others. There will be a scheme announced on the 17th of September. The country gave us a chance in 2014, said the Prime Minister, re-elected us after seeing our work in 2019. I'm confident that I'll deliver next year's speech from the Red Fort as well. The Prime Minister also asked the country to take challenges head on and remove all obstructions to our progress.
एक निष्ठ विश्वास है कि 2047 में जब देश आजादी के 100 साल मनाएगा, मेरा देश विकसित भारत बन के रहेगा। देश के पास आज एक ऐसी सरकार है, वो सर्वजन हिताय सर्वजन सुखाय, हमारे हर निर्णय, हमारे हर दिशा, उसका एक ही मानदंड है, नेशन फर्स्ट। हमारे सोनार हो, हमारे राजमिस्त्री हो, हमारे कपड़े धोने वाले काम करने वाले लोग हो, हमारे बाल काटने वाले भाई बहन परिवार हो, ऐसे लोगों को एक नई ताकत देने के लिए हम आने वाले महीने में विश्वकर्मा जयंती पर विश्वकर्मा योजना लॉन्च करेंगे। हमारे गरीब हो, हमारे दलित हो, हमारे पिछड़े हो, हमारे पसमानदा हो, हमारे आदिवासी भाई बहन हो, हमारी माताएं बहनें हो, हमने सबने उनके हकों के लिए इन 3 बुराइयों से मुक्ति पानी है। 10,000 जन औषधि केंद्र से हम 25,000 जन औषधि केंद्र का लक्ष्य लेकर के आने वाले दिनों में काम करने वाले हैं। 2 करोड़ लखपति दीदी का लक्ष्य लेकर के आज विमेन सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप पे हम काम कर रहे हैं। हम हमारी नारी शक्ति के सामर्थ्य को बढ़ावा देते हुए विमेन लेड डेवलपमेंट के, और जब G20 में मैंने विमेन लेड डेवलपमेंट के विषय को आगे बढ़ाया है तो पूरा G20 समूह इसके महत्व को स्वीकार कर रहा है। आने वाले 5 साल में मोदी का गारंटी है, देश पहले 3 वैश्विक इकोनॉमी में अपना जगह ले लेगा। लोकतंत्र की एक सबसे बड़ी इकाई को मजबूत करने के लिए हमने अलग कोऑपरेटिव मंत्रालय बनाया। हमने सहकार से समृद्धि का रास्ता अपनाया है। 1 वर्ल्ड 1 फैमिली 1 फ्यूचर, इस सोच को लेकर के चल रहे हैं। हमने क्लाइमेट को लेकर के दुनिया जो संकट से जूझ रही है, हमने रास्ता दिखाया है। लाइफ मिशन लॉन्च किया है, लाइफस्टाइल फॉर एनवायरमेंट। 2019 में परफॉर्मेंस के आधार पर आप सबने मुझे फिर से आशीर्वाद दिया, परिवर्तन का वादा मुझे यहां ले आया, परफॉर्मेंस मुझे दोबारा ले आया। और अगली बार 15 अगस्त को इसी लाल किले से मैं आपको देश की उपलब्धियां, आपके सामर्थ्य, आपके संकल्प, उसमें हुई प्रगति, उसकी जो सफलता है, उसके गौरवगान, उससे भी अधिक आत्मविश्वास के सामने आपके सामने मैं प्रस्तुत करूंगा।
Well, joining us now, Amitabh Tiwari, Vishnu Deshmukh and Sanjay Singh. We'll be looking at various parts of what the Prime Minister says. Amitabh Tiwari, in your mind, by the end of it, did this appear to be an election speech?
No, I would not say it was an out and out election speech per se, because I mean, in the initial part of the speech, like any other Prime Minister, he laid out what the achievements have been of his government, what are the promises he made and where the country currently stands out. Then he mentions about the long term and the short term goal, as you mentioned, which is the 5th largest economy in the next term and the goal of a developed nation by 2047. Then he also invokes the public, inculcating a sort of a public participation that we need to be trustworthy, transparency and non-partial, and inculcate a change in our character if we have to achieve the goals. Then he lists the challenges, and wherein the political tone is evident, wherein he mentions corruption, dynasty and appeasement. See, when he mentions dynasty, it's also backed by some amount of research. A research by CSDS of the DU students says that 2/3 of the young population do not like dynastic politics. And in the appeasement also, he's not mentioned about minority appeasement, perhaps also hitting at the fact that the appeasement of the poor through the freebies is also which he has been targeting a lot. So all in all, not an entirely political speech, a speech which shows the vision as to how India will reach its goal of being a developed nation by 2047. Of course, he oozes confidence that he will return to power on the basis of the work done in the last 9 years. And perhaps he's the only leader or the party which is also presenting a plan for the future, whereas the opposition is largely just targeting or grouping on the basis of anti-Modism.
Vishnu Deshmukh, I found it interesting that the Prime Minister spoke about protecting Dalits, tribals. Yes, we've heard that by all political leaders, but he also reached out to mention the Pasmanda community, a Muslim community which is extremely backward. What is the significance of this? Have you heard this reference by the Prime Minister in the past?
Well, Vishnu, he has an uncanny knack of identifying parts of the demographics on which he likes to work in a long-term range before converting them into an electorally sustainable vote bank of sorts. I remember in 2014 when he was reaching out to school students on the Teachers' Day or the Children's Day. At that point of time, nobody actually looked into the radar that in the 5 years down the lane in 2019, it was the same students who would be forming about 7 to 8% of the new electoral base. And we knew how it has worked out for him. At the same time, 10 years back when he was looking at the female voters individually through various schemes, we did not realize, but that actually changed the entire electoral pattern in the last 60 years, that Congress has been and the opposition parties have been beneficiary of the women vote as such. But in the last 10 years, we have seen election after election how the female vote bank actually has been the most critical vote bank as far as the BJP is concerned. So when he tries to say something in the schemes or mention something in the name of some idea or some way of focusing on those part of demographics, it doesn't sound very important at that point of time. Till the point of time we are in the post-poll analysis that, okay, this is what he was actually aiming at. So the Pasmanda thing is there.
It is an interesting reference, but I'll just come back to you in a second. Sanjay Singh, it's not very often that you would find such an elaborate mention of India's presence internationally. Now, this is something the government has been talking about at various fora, not just G20, going well beyond that, how other countries see India. He referred to the presence of several American congressmen who were there at Independence Day. How is this a strong message of the Prime Minister that this is our Independence Day, we talk about all the typical issues, but India and our reputation in the world is important?
Vishnu, you are a very keen watcher of strategic affairs of the country and also as to what is happening outside of the country across the globe. What has happened in recent years that Prime Minister, our external outreach in terms of Prime Minister's presence and in terms of what we have been doing in terms of helping different parts of the world, third world in particular, African countries in particular during COVID, post-COVID and during other times. India has made its presence felt, be it disaster management, be it something else, be it our economy. And therefore, when Prime Minister goes something, this is very visible to people of the country at large as to what kind of reception he gets, what kind of bilateral deals or multilaterals on multilateral forums on how he is received, and India is currently hosting as chairman of G20. Basically, by referring to that particular thing and changing world order post-COVID, he was hammering at two things. A, the self-confidence and boosting morale of the country, in the sense the youngsters and entrepreneurs and people who have different kind of dealings across the world and people whose families are outside. And second, he was also conveying a message of strength from here, because several diplomats were also present from here to outside. The other part is in his speech, the political part, if you say, by constantly hammering on this particular point that by 2047, India would be League of Developed Countries, the message goes home. There would be cynics, there would be people who would be critical to that, but the message goes home. Now the political part, where he said dynastic three termites of dynasty, corruption, and appeasement.
There were lots of references to three terms, but yeah, I take that point. Amitabh Tiwari, I think it's also important that right up off the top of his speech, he spoke about Manipur. He spoke about how our daughters and women had been violated over there. I think in terms of what we've seen in the state in the last couple of months, this was an important reference, a recognition that what is happening in Manipur is absolutely awful.
Yeah, of course, a very important reference, and he has been accused of not speaking a lot about Manipur in the parliament and even during the no confidence motion speech. So he did made a reference of it, and a very strong reference as to Manipur is a very dear part of India, and things would be streamlining very soon in the state, because the what has happened is in Manipur is also tied politically to the women vote bank, I would say, because there have been a string of incidents, including the Brij Bhushan episode and the Manipur episode, which may not go down very well with the women voters who are believed to be voting on emotional issues rather than on caste and creed lines. So that was a very important observation and a statement which should soothe the nerves of the people in Manipur.
Yashwant Deshmukh, he spoke about corruption, nepotism and appeasement. He didn't directly name the Congress party, unlikely that he ever would in an Independence Day sort of scenario, but that's what he was doing. He was attacking them on these three grounds, and in a sense one would suggest that going up into 2024, these would be three of the primary areas that the BJP and the Prime Minister target the opposition with.
Well, Vishnu, he got lucky with the opportunity given by the opposition earlier in the parliament, actually. So he did not have to raise those issues and those points again. So he got two different occasions to hammer down on the opposition. So all these party-specific things, he got an opportunity on the floor of the House, which I think opposition completely messed up with the way they approached the no-confidence motion, in my personal opinion. And today was the day when he does not have to go into details of that attack, those level of attacks again. He just needed to touch base upon and remind the people that what he has been harping on. So, of course, Independence Day speech is not the one where any partisan politics is to be discussed, but he did mention the main points on the nepotism, which, as Amitabh said, that among the newer generation, newer voters, that is something which is a very touching part of it. People ask about the dynasty politicians, that what did they do to come up to this place?
Sure.
Are they better than me? And when we interview the youngsters, they do talk about that. They get impressed with the politicians who they feel that, okay, this is a guy who is better than me. If not, then why should I vote for this particular person? If he or she is there just because of being son or the daughter of some other politician. So these are the sensitive points for the new generation, new voters. And I totally agree with Amitabh. I think CSDS, Sanjay Bhai did that survey that explained those intricacies in the younger population.
Sure.
So he got twice the opportunity, Vishnu, once on the floor of the House and today one at the Red Fort. So he has utilized those opportunities to the fullest.
Sanjay Singh, he also spoke about the next big economic or development agenda of this government, 2047. He says India is going to become a developed nation. For those of us growing up over the last several decades, India being a developed nation is something that we can only dream about. But if you actually look at our macroeconomic indicators, if you actually look at tech development, if you look at the areas in manufacturing that this government is focusing on infra as well, which he highlighted, then it's important, because what he said is the most important phase of the fulfillment of goals for the year 2047 will be in the next 5 years. So my question is this: was this a Prime Minister seeking to reach out to an aspirational India, an India which seeks India to be genuinely a world-class power?
Vishnu, he started reaching aspirational India way back in 2013 when he addressed students at SRCC, Sri Ram College of Commerce, if you remember. And from there on, when he became Prime Minister, he set short-term goal and long-term goal in terms of aspiration and also in terms of real achievement. In 2014, it was Swachh Bharat Mission, Made in India, subsequently Digital India, and he set those terms. And thereafter, now, for quite some time now, he's setting up to 2047 goal. At the same time, he is also addressing young and aspirational India, whereby he is talking about the startups, the milestones reached by youngsters in terms of startups, in terms of Digital India, and also next 5 years. He is talking next 5 years. The message is also political that he is going to come back. he correctly said that next year he'll hoist national flag and go on talking about what aspirational India wanted, what he achieved, his road ahead, and so on and so forth. That message was also for internally. I also believe for externally, because that message has to go down to everybody that there will be a process of continuity. There are people who have certain kind of not very sure as to this is going to happen. But this is how you charge your cadre, this is how you charge your supporters, and this is how you enthuse your people. At the same time, at party level, I know for sure that they are working very hard to make a strategy. Nobody is complacent within the political system in the BJP and their allied organizations. Here, Prime Minister, I think he talked about Vishkarma Jayanti and Vishkarma Yojana, as you mentioned about Pasmandas. So addressing a social constituency, talking about economy, he takes the guarantee word which is often used by his opponents, Congress or Aam Aadmi Party, in terms of freebies. He talks guarantee in terms of rooting out corruption and making India third largest economy.
Amitabh, he spoke about the importance of regional languages. He getting the operative part of Supreme Court judgments in regional languages is a good thing. The Chief Justice, there was a shot of him sort of appreciating that remark. But this is important because it's a reach out to well beyond the Hindi heartland.
Yeah, because in the past, the BJP has been accused of sort of imposing Hindi on the rest of India, apart from the North Indian states. And therefore, I think he mentions the use of the regional languages as a medium of study, as a medium of legislation, and as a medium in the courts as well. And that also can be considered as sort of a reach out to the other regional, other states where the BJP is not that strong, particularly the eastern part and the southern part of India, because he mentioned about the regional unity. He also mentioned about unity required to achieve the goal of the developed nation in 2047. See, politics is the art of managing the contradictions, and Sir is here, Yashwant Sir is here, and I believe that there was a message for all: poor, middle class, the rich. The poor is the schemes and the social security. The middle class is the infrastructure and the aspiration of becoming a developed goal. And amongst all castes and communities, if I'm not wrong, BJP today enjoys a far greater lead compared to other political parties when they were in power, especially after the end of the Indira era. So he has been able to manage all the contradictions within the social bloc and the alliances, and had a message for all the various voting segments of blocs.
Yashwant Deshmukh, the other big focus area which I thought was it wasn't missing, but it wasn't as much as we've seen in the last several Independence Day addresses, schemes and promises to the nation. It's not one after the other reaching out to different parts. He had just a couple of very specific schemes that he announced.
Well, he's the person who is known to take the decisions to the logical end. So I don't think that he has the tendency of announcing way too many things and delivering on a sort of thing. I think he is, when he announces something, he is very, very thorough and meticulous planner. Those who know him, they have written about him, they have told about these things, his personal traits. Right. So if one or the two schemes, if he has launched, he has said, he has promised, then most probably he has just thought and planned it thoroughly to take it to the logical end. And this is why I guess that he says something when he is absolutely sure about it. That also shows during the crises, Vishnu. If you look into the way he handles the different crises, the opposition always attacks that he is not saying on those things. He says something when he is absolutely sure about it.
And he says that's interesting, and that's important, because if you look at the promises made by prime ministers across several governments in the past, on Independence Day, it's a litany of promises which has never been fulfilled. Several of them are never fulfilled. So he's cut down on that, and he's focused on a few areas and he's given deadlines. For example, a scheme for cobblers, blacksmiths, barbers. It will be launched on the 17th of September. So he said, this is the date, I'm going to get down to business. So that's actually quite impressive. Look, we're out of time on this program. I'd like to thank you all very much for being with us. So it's an interesting speech by the Prime Minister, somewhat different from what we've seen in the past. Fewer schemes, but schemes with deadlines, a distinct political message. 2040, the elections 2024 around the corner, but the larger goal of India and our development by 2047. That's also a big focus area for the Prime Minister, not just in terms of our economy, but how India is viewed by other nations.